Hey guys, Morktorgus here. So, today we're going to be looking at some more Ashes of Outland cards. I've fallen a bit behind in terms of the cards that have been revealed so far because I had no idea it would take as long as it would to put out these card reviews that I've put out so far. But we have a lot to go through, so let's just hop into it and see what we got. Alright, first card is Imprisoned Antaean. That is a 5-mana 10/6 for Demon Hunter. It's a demon, and it's dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, deal 10 damage, randomly split among all enemies. So I've heard this card be compared to Avenging Wrath, which makes a lot of sense because Avenging Wrath is a 6-mana spell that does 8 damage randomly split among all enemies. This is 10 damage randomly split among all enemies for 1 less mana, and you get a 10/6 on top of that. You do have to wait the 2 turns, but that's still not much of a cost to get this giant body, which, like, 10/6, that's 16 stats, it's like a 8 drop. It's got a little bit low health, so maybe more comparable to a 7 drop, but like a really good 7 drop. So like you're getting, and that makes sense because it's coming out on turn 7, but like you're getting this 7 drop, very aggressive size body, and you're doing 10 damage to everything. Like, you could also look at this as it's a little bit comparable to Reno right now, where it does the 10 damage, but it's also going to hit face. So it can do a lot of face damage, but it can also clear some things. Whatever is there might get hit. You can't really be sure what's going to happen there because your opponent's going to set up the board and everything. But 10 damage is a lot, and if you're in an aggressive deck, which this might be a little bit slow for an aggressive deck, but honestly it's so big, you might just put it in an aggressive deck. It's going to push a lot of damage. And they're going to have to like try and put up a wide board of mid-sized minions in a short amount of time just to try and absorb all this like damage is going to be split among their minions. Honestly, just it seems insane. It's just so much. I'm going to give this one 5 stars. And we've got Soul Split for Demon Hunter. 4 mana, rare spell. Choose a friendly demon and summon a copy of it. It's 1 mana cheaper than Faceless Manipulator, which, generally speaking, you'd rather have the flexibility of Faceless Manipulator if you wanted to copy something. And in a lot of cases, you won't be running Faceless Manipulator. A lot of decks don't. I'm not sure if this would really make sense over stuff like that. Normally, when you have a spell like this, the reason why you run this over something like that is because of the fact that it has spell-based synergies. But as far as we've seen so far, I don't think Demon Hunter is going to have any insane spell-based synergies. It might just be good enough that 1 mana off will be worth it if you're trying to copy a bunch of these large demons and these large demon comps and stuff like that. But I don't think that's very likely, honestly. I do see the potential here if we like had a spell discount type thing or whatever in a Demon Hunter. That just doesn't seem like a kind of card that we would see in Demon Hunter though, but who knows. So I don't think it's a terrible card. I think I'll just give it 2 stars. Then for Druid, we have a Marsh Hydra, 7 mana, 7/7 epic beast minion. It's got Rush, and after this attacks, add a random 8-cost minion to your hand. So having these Rush stats is pretty good. That's a way to remove something at the same time. Like, 7 drop's clearly pretty slow, but you're getting the Rush, so it's tempo, and you're getting the 8 drop, so it's more value, and it curves out, which is kind of how it's supposed to be designed, obviously. Where you play this on 7, you get the 8 drop, you can play the 8 drop. I believe that Most 8-drops right now definitely aren't too bad. I can't think of too many that are too bad. There's the one that gets extra stats when you cast spells, which is pretty weak, but yeah, for the most part, they're pretty good, and we might see some more good ones too. What deck this is going to go into, I'm not sure. There's a possibility it goes in Embiggen Druid, but I'm not entirely certain that that would make sense. It could be a good top end for Embiggen Druid if you wanted to close out the game, but like every minion's kind of mid-sized already, right? You probably don't need an extra 8-drop when you're already getting these large minions from the Embiggens every time. I feel like this fits in a different deck than that, but I do think it could be a card that you would consider at the very least. I think you could put it in an Embiggen Druid and you wouldn't feel too bad about it. It might just be a little bit slow though. You might need a lower curve than that, but this could be your top end. It's just that Wing Guardian's kind of your top end, right? And that's a lot more defensive than this. So I think I'll give it 3 stars, given that it has the ability to go in those slots, I think. And you might find a different deck that makes more sense. I don't see it yet, what deck that would be. But as we see more cards, we'll probably figure it out. We've only seen a few cards for Druid. Alright, on to the Hunter cards. These cards look pretty sick. So we've got Zizor, Apex Predator, a legendary for Hunter. And this is their prime minion. It's a 3-mana, 2/4 rush, beast, and Death Rattle Shuffle Zizor Prime into your deck. And Zizor Prime is a 8-mana 4/4 with rush that says Battle Cry, summon 3 copies of this minion. So that seems pretty sick. The original body is fine. It's a more defensively statted rush minion, which I guess trades better into these 2 health minions. I think it might be a little worse than a 3/3 generally, but it could be good depending on we are seeing some hand buff type of stuff, or like at least beast buff kind of things, so maybe that would work. But you'd rather those go on this prime minion, because if you get Scavenger Ingenuity and you put 3/3 on that, it goes from 4/4s to 7/7s. Now honestly, 4 4/4s is quite a big threat. They're gonna need to use a board clear or something, or if you're a little bit behind already, I guess they're gonna end up being wasted on the trades and stuff. But that's a big swing back in terms of tempo and a good comeback mechanic. But if they're 7/7s, like, oh my goodness, it's nowhere near as good as the Warrior Invoke card is, honestly, if you think about it. Like, the extra health definitely helps, but the amount of extra mana you're spending and the fact that the first one has to die first is quite a big deal. But the fact that you're comparing it to Scion of Ruin, and Scion of Ruin is an insane card, like, this is clearly a good card. If this whole buff your beasts with the Scavenge Ingenuity type of deck happens, I think you would run this in that. I think this could be a solid card in a Highlander Hunter deck as well. It's just strong as it is, and also pushing back fatigue, if that's ever relevant. Probably won't be, honestly, in this meta, but you never know. I don't think it's absolutely insane. I think I'm just gonna give it 4 stars. Then we have another Hunter legendary, which is Beastmaster Leoroxx, which is an 8-mana 5/5, and it says Battle Cry, summon 3 beasts from your hand. Wow, that's a big push. I do have a little bit of reservations about this card because of the fact that we are losing Master's Call. Not that you necessarily be able to use Master's Call with this card because of the fact that it's not a beast anyways. But the fact that you're not having very much draw in Hunter is my real concern with this card. And I've seen some people get really hyped about it, and I think there is some reason to hold back on that. It might not be quite as OP as we think. We do get the Scavenger's Ingenuity though, which is a draw card, and it will buff up the beasts in your hand. So when they do come down, it will be a much bigger push. If you have a lot of beasts in your deck and you're playing a more mid-range type of strategy, which I think you definitely can in a Highlander Hunter, then it's entirely possible that you have a decent amount of mid-sized beasts in your hand. And that could be very, very strong. That would be a huge push. It would definitely require your opponent to drop a Zephyrus or something. And if they don't have that, like, I don't know if they'll be able to come back. If you want to, you could run King Crush with this, and that would be a great swing. It would be just this plus King Crush is already a slightly slower but much higher statted Dino Tamer Bran with no Highlander requirement. So I feel like it could make King Crush viable, which is crazy. There could also be other strategies with like Tundra Rhino and stuff like that. You might try to make a combo deck out of this, but again, draw is always an issue for Hunter. So maybe we're going to get more draw, or maybe we're just going to run normal neutral draw options and stuff like that. So really my main concern is that whatever deck puts this in, it's probably either going to be not extreme impact, or it's going to be a slower kind of Hunter deck, and that might be a little bit hard to do. Either way, I still think that this will find a home in a deck, and it will be probably one of your big win con cards. It could also just throw the game if you pull all of your stuff in your hand and then your opponent has the board clear and instantly answers everything, and then you have no more resources. I'm definitely on the fence right now, either 4 or 5 stars. I think I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I think it will push a deck, and it has that kind of power. So I'm gonna give it 5 stars. All right, then we have Augmented Porcupine, another Hunter card, 3 mana, 2/4 epic beast, and has Death Rattle. Deal this minion's attack damage, randomly split among all enemies. So clearly this is another buff your beast synergy card. It's even in the art for Scavenger's Ingenuity, so they're clearly saying you should use this on your Augmented Porcupine, and that would be pretty sweet. You could go Ingenuity on 2, Porcupine on 3, you get a 5/7 for 3 mana, and then when it dies it does 5 damage to your enemies. It includes face, so you might not necessarily clear stuff with it, but like if they have to kill that body, like that's enough to deal with already. If they had to use a removal spell, then you are still getting to remove threats from their board without even having to attack or anything like that. So that's pretty sweet. It might be a little bit ambitious for that kind of thing to work. I think we want to see a little bit more support for this in the remaining cards that Hunter's gonna get, but I am very interested in this kind of thing. It's also not terrible on its own. It's a 2/4 with some upside. It's definitely a very the fact that it's a Death Rattle makes it very weak to silence, so we'll see if that ends up being too detrimental for it to work. You might rather have the stats on something with Rush or charge or something like that so that it immediately gets to do something with its stats. I think it could be an option that you run if we see more of this buffing type of support for this archetype. I think that it will definitely be pushed to a point where it will be in a deck like that. But otherwise, I think you'll be running Scavenger's Ingenuity in a lot of hunter decks. And whether you run this or not is going to depend on what other options you're hoping to hit with it. So I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. It's definitely an option that you could run if you're going to do something like that. Then we have Astromancer Solarian. This is the Mage Prime minion. It's 2 mana, 3/2, spell damage +1, Death Rattle, shuffle Solarian Prime into your deck. So again, as with most of these Prime minions, their base body's pretty solid. It's a 2 mana, 3/2 with spell damage, so that's not bad. But the Prime minion is quite strong. 7 mana, 7/7, spell damage +1, Battlecry casts 5 random mage spells, targets enemies if possible. That's really important, that last part. The fact that you can, because of the fact that most mage spells are damage-based spells, removal spells, stuff like that, that's just kind of how mage works. The fact that it's hitting enemies specifically means that you're definitely going to get a lot out of this. You're probably going to get to remove a lot of their stuff. If their face is open, you might just get to go and throw a bunch of fireballs at their face or something like that. I don't know if you necessarily want to play this in that case, because I think a lot of the spells will end up being board clears and stuff like that. So if they don't have a board, you might whiff on a few of them and they won't get the full value. But even then, like, you're getting a 7/7, and at least some of the spells are gonna work out for you pretty well. So that seems really good. I've looked at the options that you can get. The only bad spell that you can cast in your opponent is Conjurer's Calling. And even if that happens, you might still clear out whatever you end up summoning for them. And you still get to the twin spell version. So it's not even that bad when it's worst case scenario. Like, that might even be helpful to you in some ways. It might be acting as a silence in some cases. This card is definitely going to be in a mage deck, probably in Highlander Mage, because obviously Highlander Mage is what we've been seeing a lot of, and this card seems just perfect for that kind of a thing. Of course, the only problem, it might take a while to come out of your deck, but this 2-drop is fine whenever you can just drop it on 2, and that would get you to your eventual state a lot faster. With all these crazy Prime minions, I feel like it might be possible that people run a lot more silence for this kind of stuff, and that's probably why they had to cycle Spellbreaker out of Standard. Anyways, clearly extremely powerful. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Then for Paladin, we have Lady Liadrin, 7 mana, 4/6 legendary. Battlecry, add a copy of each spell you cast on friendly characters this game to your hand. So this obviously reminds me a lot of Linessa Sun Sorrow, which used to be the 7 mana 1/1 that casts all of your spells on itself. All of your spells that got cast on your minions anyways. This one does include your face, so you do get back like healing spells that you use on yourself and stuff like that. I think that this definitely gives you a lot of value back, whereas Linessa was a tempo tool and kind of pushed a lot of your threats that you had all game into one big threat. This one is going to give you extra value to try and come back and use it all again. Much slower card. And the stats are not great. I don't think with the current buffs we have that I'm super excited about this, and with what we've seen so far, I think we're gonna need to see some pretty powerful buff cards for this to make sense. Obviously, we haven't seen very many paladin cards yet. I think for now, I'm just pretty unexcited about it. I don't think it's going to help any decks that I can think of very much right now. It might work in like a pure paladin where they've got a lot of paladin spells and then they're going to generate some more off of that 7-drop that gives you extra paladin cards. But yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence in this. I'm going to give it 2 stars for now. I think there's definitely a way that it could work. You just need another strong, slow paladin, and with the amount of stuff we just lost for a deck like that, all of the paladin control cards that were really strong in decks like Holy Wrath Paladin are all gone, so I think it's going to be pretty rough. Alright, then we have an epic card. It is Under Light Angling Rod. 3 mana, 3/4 weapon for Paladin, and after your hero attacks, add a random Murloc to your hand. So Murloc Paladin obviously is kind of dying in its current iteration because of the fact that we're losing Prismatic Lens and you can't get 1 mana Tip the Scales anymore, which didn't even make the deck a amazing deck. It was still struggling in the meta we have right now. Like, it was a good play for sure, but now that's gone. They're gonna have to have something else. This is just giving you some extra gas in those decks. You're not really going to be able to do Murloc Paladin very well right now unless there's some different angle that we're looking for here. They do have that card that gives their Murlocs Divine Shields that we got with Galakron's Awakening, the dragon that does that. Maybe you have this dragon Murloc combo working here, but this doesn't seem to be pushing it very hard. I think it'll need more support if this is going to make sense. This barely helps at all, honestly. It's a decent weapon, I suppose. It's a 3 mana 3/2 with upside. But yeah, I think until we see more Murloc support, I'm going to give it 2 stars. Then we're on to Dragon Maw Overseer for Priest. It's a 3 mana 2/2. At the end of your turn, give another friendly minion +2/+2. So this is very similar to Shadow Ascendant, which is a card we used to have, which is a 2 mana 2/2 that at the end of the turn give another friendly minion +1/+1. So you're paying 1 extra mana for 1 extra end of turn stat. And I think the end of turn stat is more important than the stats on this minion. You're trying to get these buffs. And you could put more buffs on this card to try and keep it alive. It definitely works with this Zoo Priest idea, which it seems like that's the way they're going now, with a lot of the stuff they've done with the Priest reworking that they've done. They're trying to get away from what it used to be, and they definitely give them a lot of control tools and improve their control tools, and they're trying to make the Zoo Priest stronger. So I think it's possible that this will work out. Again, we're still early on in the reveals. This is the first Priest card we've even seen this expansion. But I believe that they'll probably give us more stuff like this that'll try and make that Zoo Priest dream come true. It's not incredibly exciting, but I think it would be pretty good in that kind of a deck. I'm going to give it 3 stars. Then on to Rogue, we have Shadow Jeweler Hanar as their first legendary. It's a 2 mana 1/5. After you play a secret, discover a secret from a different class. So here's that secret synergy. It sounds like we're going to get a lot of secret synergy with Rogue, which is really interesting because, you know, they rarely get any secrets. They're really pushing it all at once in this expansion. The fact that you're discovering the secret is really cool. You get to pick the one that you need in the situation from different classes. Generally speaking, I think Hunter secrets are going to be the best options, but there'll definitely be times when you want different ones. and it is an infinite secret generator. If you start with one, let's say it's 10 mana right now, you go your secret from your deck, so that's 4 mana with this plus the secret. Then you could potentially get some paladin secrets for 1 mana, you get some hunter secrets for 2 mana, and you could do as much as like 5 secrets in one turn if you're doing some cheap ones. That's pretty crazy. I think it'll be pretty sweet. It pushes this secret rogue archetype, and I'm liking what I've seen from it so far. It's still hard to tell based on just having ambush as the secret that we've seen for rogue, whether this is going to work, but I think it will. I think it's on the right path. I think I'm going to give this card 4 stars. Then we have another secret synergy card for rogue. It's Blackjack Stunner. Rare card, 1 mana, 1/2, very cheap. And Battlecry, if you control a secret, return a minion to its owner's hand, it costs 2 more. So you're getting a Battlecry Freezing Trap, which is great. It's cheaper than Sap, which is great. So you can go secret into this, that's 3 mana, you get to set up the secret, and you get to do a better than Sap for 1 mana. So if Shadow Jeweler is giving you access to the secrets, this card is giving you an upside for having the secrets, and it's a big one. I think since we're still not sure if the secret thing is going to work out, it's hard for me to give this 5 stars. It's just really strong, but I'll give it 4 stars. And if this secret thing comes together, I think it'll be a 5-star card. It's really, really good. I'm really hyped about this secret rogue thing. And then we have Akama, 3 mana, 3/4 stealth minion for rogue. Death Rattle, shuffle Akama Prime into your deck. So this is their prime minion, and again, very strong looking card. Akama Prime is a 6 mana, 6/5 permanently stealth. So that is really crazy. We've never seen anything like this. It's funny because I was making a video about different keywords, and we were talking about stealth, and I was wondering where stealth was going to go, and this is some crazy way for it to go. Getting permanent stealth on a 6/5 minion. Obviously it's still removable with non-targeting effects like Deadly Shot and board clears like Twisting Nether, and it still has to attack through taunts, so you might have to have it sit there and not attack if it's stuck needing to hit a taunt, and that's not really an option for you. But in a lot of situations, it's going to be really hard to remove, and even if they do have an answer in their deck, it might not be immediately available to them, and even if it is, you're having to burn it on this card that's coming back twice. You're getting it 2 times, having the value 2 times. I think it could push a lot of damage very quickly if it's not answered. The only problem, of course, being that you have to draw it after it's been shuffled. You're definitely going to have high roll situations where Akama comes down on 3 and then Akama Prime comes down on 6. And you're going to be really upset because of the incredible odds that have to happen for that to occur. But with the amount of draw that Rogue has, I think they're going to be able to get this Akama Prime out, not in too much difficulty. And even if it comes down really late, it'll be able to push a lot of damage whenever it happens. So it could be your win con in a certain way, like just being one of your big threats that pushes a lot of damage all at once. I think you're definitely throwing this into probably most rogue decks just as a big threat, as long as you're just doing the kind of things we've been doing lately with like Galakron Rogue and Highlander Galakron Rogue. This is definitely going to work. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Then for Shaman, we have the Lurker Below. This is their legendary minion, 6 mana, 6/3, Battlecry, deal 3 damage to an enemy minion. If it dies, repeat this on an adjacent minion. So you could do something where you hit the minion on the left, and it goes bang, 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 hits everything in a row if they're all 3 health or less. That's pretty cool. I don't think that's likely in most cases. In some cases, this is gonna be cool, but I think in a lot of cases, there's gonna be a time when you have a minion in the middle that's got more than 3 HP that breaks your chain of going all the way across, and that's gonna suck a lot. I just don't know how often this is gonna go off and hit everything that you need it to. I think it might sit in your hand for a long time as you try to find a way to line things up properly, and that could hold it back a lot. Depending on the meta, depending on how many 3 or less health minions we're going to see, this could be really good. I think with what I'm expecting to see from the meta, I think we won't have huge swings off of this in most cases. I'm going to give it a meta-dependent rating and say that it's going to go 2 stars. I think it's not going to work at first, but it definitely could work in certain metas. I think you'll just have better options than this, and that's just really what's going to hold it back. Then we have Bog Spine Knuckles. Epic weapon for Shaman, 5 mana, 4/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, transform your minions into random ones that cost 1 more. So you have an evolve effect attached to a weapon. That's very interesting. So you're getting 2 evolve effects. You can set this up ahead of time, and as long as it doesn't get removed from weapon removal, you'll be able to do the attack for 0 mana. Obviously, attacking doesn't cost mana. And then get that evolve across your board, so you can set up the board state after you've set up the weapon. So it's a little bit slower than playing evolve, which we had back when the Doom the Tomb event happened and we saw lots of evolve shaman. And obviously Desert Hare made a lot of sense there. I think whether you run Desert Hare with this might be a little questionable because it'll take a little bit longer to happen. It's still a good swing. It's still 4 drops, 3/4 drops. I think it's possible that we could make this evolve thing work. We're just gonna need more evolve lovers. Obviously, we still have Flesh Shaper, I believe isn't getting rotated yet. So you could use Mogu Flesh Shaper if you can get a wide enough board. I'm not sure how I'm gonna build a deck with evolve like this, where what minions are gonna go in that kind of a thing. I think it's possible though, and I also think that maybe this is just good enough as a weapon that even if you don't have great synergy with the evolve, you just can have some minor synergy, and that'll still be fine if you evolve 1 or 2 things off of your weapon attacks and you just have a 4/2 weapon. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I think I'm going to give this 3 stars. I don't have incredible confidence in evolve shaman yet from what we've seen. Maybe eventually we'll see enough that I become more confident in it. Then we've got Bogstrock Clacker. 3 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, transform adjacent minions into random ones that cost 1 more. Another evolve synergy card. So this is interesting. You're going to have to pay the 3 when you play it. You're getting to evolve 2 things at the time that you do it. This one seems a lot more awkward than the weapon, and definitely a lot more awkward than cards like Mutate or Evolve. I think because of how hard it is right now for you to set up these evolve situations, I think this might be a little difficult to pull off. But again, it could be just a decent 3-drop with an upside, right? If you get 1 evolve on a minion that got a trade-off already, that might not be the worst thing ever. It's also a battle cry, so you could put this in a battle cry shaman, get a double evolve on your battle cry minions, which are generally speaking going to be understated for their mana costs. That's just kind of how battle cries normally work. So I can definitely see it in a battle cry shaman or an evolve shaman. So that's kind of an upside there. But again, I don't think it's something that you're necessarily going to need to have in your deck, or something that builds a deck around it or anything like that. I think I'm going to give this one 3 stars. And the last shaman card we have for today, we have a Torrent, rare spell, 5 mana, deal 8 damage to a minion, cost 3 less if you cast a spell last turn. So that would make it cost 2. So you had to cast a spell last turn. This is definitely feeling like something you'd be doing in a control deck. And obviously this is a more control deck type effect. It's Flame Lance basically from Mage, but with this condition that you can make it cheaper. In a control shaman, you're generally going to be casting spells on a regular basis, and it won't be too hard to set this up. The main thing is that you might not know that you're going to need it, and you might not cast a spell because you're not sure that you're going to need it when you need it. Of course, paying 5 mana for it isn't the worst thing ever. It's still a decent removal. It's just you'd rather it be cheaper. The fact that it can be cheaper and doesn't have to be cheaper does make it seem good. I think it could work in a control deck. In terms of other decks running spells, I think we're losing a lot of synergy there. So I think it kind of has to be a control deck, and a lot of cases you're not going to need this random 8 damage to minions if you're just running a regular, like, more mid-range or aggressive deck. And certainly in like a deck like Battlecry Shaman, you don't have enough spells for this to work. Depending on if we have a control shaman, that's going to be the real thing to just determine this. For the time being, it could be a good option in some things. I don't think I see the deck that it goes into yet. It's a fine card, but it really needs to be there with the other spells, or you're not going to bother with it. You're not going to have enough of a reason to be running it. Of course, I'm reevaluating all these cards at the end of the reveal season, so we'll be able to re-rate these things if they need to be rated higher or lower. So I'll just give it 2 stars for now. Alright, then for Warlock, we have a 1 mana spell. It's an epic card, Shadow Council. Replace your hand with random demons, give them +2/+2. So that seems pretty fun. This is probably just a fun card, but honestly, turn 1 even, you could play this, and then +2/+2, that could be pretty significant. It could put you on a path towards something. You might have to craft a deck around it to try and like have a lot of just control-y type cards, or like random cards that you're really not going to care about losing. But then again, you also probably want your hand to be pretty large, so you wait on that too. So yeah, I think maybe you put it in like a hand warlock. As weird as that sounds, maybe put in a hand warlock, and then you have your big hand, and then once you've decided that the cards you're currently holding on to aren't really going to work in your current matchup maybe, or there's just, you'd rather have a buffed up demon than what you're currently holding on to. And this could definitely give you more playable cards that could give you cheaper cards than what you're currently holding. I think getting a bunch of random stuff, it's just that there's gonna be some really sick demons this expansion, I think, but potentially also some really bad demons. A lot of them are gonna be imprisoned cards, which is very, very slow. I think because of that fact, and also just, it could be anything. You might get thrown into a hole with the demons that you get offered. I think I'm just gonna give it 1 star. I think it's a meme card. Like, if it does end up being really good, I'm gonna be really happy. But I don't think it will. It reminds me too much of Renounced Darkness, though that had the mana cost reduction instead of the stats. So this might be more relevant, we'll see. Then we have Imprisoned Scrap Imp. This is a 2 mana 3/3 demon, and it goes dormant for 2 turns, as all the other imprisoned cards do. And when this awakens, give all the minions in your hand +2/+2. So that is interesting. It's hard to figure out where this would go, given that we've seen some other buff lover type things in other classes this expansion. Maybe Warlock gets some too, or maybe this is just its own thing, I'm not sure. I think that it's possible you could make a zoo-ish type deck around this that's a little bit slower, or something like that. I know a lot of people say that hand buff is bad, and that's kind of a reason why you might not be interested in this type of card. But I think the fact that you have your Warlock hero power and you can fill your hand up a bunch, have lots of hits with something like this, especially when you know it's about to happen, you start tapping to get those extra minions hits. I think it goes one turn, goes one tick, and then second turn it goes off, right? So you'd have one turn to tap. You'd get 2 cards that turn when you tapped, as long as you're not throwing away too many cards and you're holding on to them, which of course might be a little bit difficult for a zoo deck. So there is a caveat there. I think if we had cards that generated more cards in a Warlock's hand, that would make me like this more. I mean, I think I'm definitely biased towards hand buff. Hand buff's something I've always loved and tried to make work. But the more I look at this, the more I'm having trouble seeing where it's going to work out. It's gonna have to be a slower deck that cares a lot about their minion size. Like, so you've got a mid-range deck where you're playing this on turn 2 and then tapping the turn after. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we're gonna need more support for this. I think for now I don't see how it will go off really well, just with where it's at. I think we need more cards that generate other cards and stuff like that, perhaps, that will make it so that you'll have enough hits on it that it'll feel worth it. So I think I'm going to give it 2 stars. Then for Warrior, we have War Maul Challenger. It's an epic card, 3 mana, 1/10. Oh my god, 11 stats on 3 mana? My goodness. And then Battle Cry, choose an enemy minion, battle it to the death. So that means that it's going to keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it until one of the 2 minions dies. Again, it's looking to me like a hand buff type card, so maybe more of these classes are getting these hand buff type cards. Maybe it's going to be a theme among the expansion, just we haven't seen too many of them, so it's hard to tell if that's going to happen. Assuming that we're not, this still looks kind of cool. It's going to be good at killing something with 1 or 2 HP. Any more than that, it's starting to become unlikely that you'll be able to kill it. Stuff that it could be really good at killing is like Meevil Miscreant is 4 health and it goes bang 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 4 times and it finishes it off. This is definitely going to be cool as a minion that you could, if you kill a 1/1 with it and then it's a 1/9 and then you give it Rampage or something, or you're using Frothing Berserker. Like, in general, damage synergy with this seems to make a lot of sense. It's gonna have some targets that you really can't attack with it, and it's gonna wait till you do have something you can hit with it. There might be some matchups where it's gonna be hard to find a time to play this. That's the only real problem I see with it. Other than that, like, I think it's going to be something that you can build off of. You could drop the buff on this after it's attacked, get the Rampage, and then duplicate it with the Mercenary, and then you'll have a big board swing pretty quickly. I'm not sure if we really need more synergy to make this work. I think we might be able to do it with what we have. I'm just not sure if you play this over other options, if it's going to be too awkward in a lot of cases for you to pick it over other cards that you could get. With Galakrond, though, with Galakrond getting this buffed up in Galakrond Warrior, that would be so insane. Like, because of the fact that you could hit this with Galakrond, I think you have to run this in Galakrond Warrior, just because it would be so nuts. I'm going to give it 4 stars. And then we have neutral cards here. Moarg Artificer, 2 mana, 2/4, Demon, all minions take double damage from spells. So this gets some extra stats because of the fact that the minion itself is going to have a drawback of being really easily removed by spells. Specifically, Backstab one-shots it for 0 mana. But you could line it up where you put this down and then you follow it up with some spells, and then you're not too worried about losing it anymore. You're probably going to want this in a control type deck. Otherwise, why are you really trying to do double damage with your spells to minions? And you're not going to want your own minions to take double damage, clearly. So once you leave it there and you make it too easy for your opponent to clear out your stuff, that would be very detrimental to you. So maybe we see this in like a control warrior, control shaman, control mage, like Highlander mage or something. I'm not really sure exactly. I think it definitely has the potential to be a card that you fit into a deck to improve your ability to clear things out. But it definitely doesn't seem like something you're going to need for any decks. It definitely doesn't seem like something that is a surefire fit into any deck, but it's definitely a cool option. I think it's kind of like a tech card. It's not specifically countering anything except for it synergizes with your spells against their minions. Of course, every deck's going to have minions and every deck's going to have spells, but this is going to work better in some decks than others. So because I'm not exactly sure where it's going to fit, but I think it will eventually find a place somewhere, or at least it will be considered to find a place somewhere. I'm going to give it 3 stars. We have a Lar. It's legendary for neutral. 5 mana, 7/3 elemental. Dang, that's some low health. Death Rattle. Summon a 0/3 Ashes of Alar that resurrects this minion on your next turn. So this is our Phoenix. I don't know if this is the only Phoenix we're going to see for Year of the Phoenix, but this is a Phoenix that we're going to see. So basically, you could kind of consider it to be a 7/6 because you have to kill the 3 and then kill the other 3. So it's split a little bit, but it's still a 7/6, which is more stats than you'd expect for your normal 5-drop. It's a lot weaker to small removal and stuff like that, or just a trade. The second part is a 0 attack, so it's very easy for you to trade into it. You could do like a Frostbolt and then attack with your 3 attack minion, and this thing is just done for. And this is a 5-drop. So that's a little bit tough. In an elemental type deck, maybe this is just the only option you have that really makes sense. Like, it might just fit in an elemental deck, but I don't think elemental decks really work right now. We're losing a lot of elemental synergy from Mage, and that's the only elemental deck I could think of recently that even looked viable, and it wasn't very viable. I think maybe with more elemental synergy, and I think you could do some cool stuff with Death Rattle stuff, but even then, I still don't really know how you'd pull that off. I don't think it's an incredibly terrible card. I think with more support, it could find a way to work out, but I think initially it's definitely not going to have that, unless that comes about in the next few reveals. We'll see how that happens. For now, I think we're going to give it 2 stars. And that's it for the video. That's all the things that have been revealed so far. I'll keep giving you more reviews as we get more cards revealed, and I hope that you will keep up with that and check out the future ones as they come out. If you liked the video, please leave a like, comment down below what cards you're excited about from this reveal, and what archetypes you're excited to try out in the upcoming expansion. And please subscribe for more of my content in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.